Welcome to Everything You Need to Know About the Ascension of Humanity, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern science and spiritual evolution gets real. I'm Heather, an energy healer, channel, and spiritual coach with Divine Ascension Company. Each week, we're diving deep into the mysteries of human consciousness, spiritual awakening, and the profound transformation happening within us and around us. But here's the thing. We're not doing this with our heads in the clouds. We're bringing neuroscience, psychology, quantum physics, and cutting-edge research to the table alongside meditation, energy work, and timeless spiritual teachings. Because the truth is, the ascension of humanity isn't some far-off cosmic event. It's happening right now in the choices we make, the awareness we cultivate, and the healing we do within ourselves. Whether you're curious about how mindfulness literally rewires your brain, why shadow work is backed by depth psychology, or what coherence between your heart and mind actually means scientifically, you're in the right place. We'll explore practices like breathwork, meditation, and emotional alchemy, not as abstract concepts, but as tangible tools grounded in both spiritual wisdom and scientific understanding. And here's where it gets even better. In our bonus episodes, you'll hear from real people sharing real stories. These are the warriors, the healers, the everyday seekers who've walked through their own darkness and found their light. They'll share their breakthroughs, their struggles, and the resources that actually helped them along the way. Because personal growth isn't a solo journey, and you deserve to know you're not alone. So whether you're just beginning to question the nature of reality, or you're deep in your spiritual practice, this podcast is your companion on the path. It's time to expand, to awaken, and to rise together. Let's begin. Today's guest almost died 3 times. Dr. Andrea has a PhD in clinical psychology and spent nearly 20 years as a director at a behavioral health hospital. The person who decided whether someone in crisis needed to be admitted, who trained her staff to manage the emotional weight of that work, who helped build an entire department around helping people at the very worst moments of their lives. And then she became the patient. In the summer of 2024, she started getting sick. Her doctors didn't catch it. The ER sent her home. Urgent care gave her antibiotics. But she kept getting worse. She was walking with a cane. She couldn't pack her own bag. Her husband had to help her to the car. And still, because she is someone who takes her professional commitment seriously, she tried to show up for a job 4.5 hours away from home. And she collapsed in the hotel lobby. What followed was an emergency surgery, 2-week coma, a ventilator, feeding tube, a 1.5 months in the ICU, and 3.5 months in the hospital total. Doctors didn't know if she was going to make it. And somewhere in that coma, she kept hearing a Rod Stewart song. She couldn't make out the words. She just knew that it was Rod Stewart. It wasn't until almost exactly a year later, at an event and out of nowhere, that she finally heard the song again, pulled out her phone, Googled it, and found out what it was. Young hearts be free tonight. Time is on your side. In this episode, we talk about what it actually takes to choose gratitude when you're lying in a hospital bed, on a ventilator, wondering why you survived it all. We talk about the pivot from crisis intervention to prevention, from helping people after they've broken down to helping them build the skills so they don't need to get there. We talk about what 20 years of watching people at their worst teaches you about what actually matters. And we talk about the decision, the conscious daily decision that changed her recovery. This one is about what it means to actually live the days that you have. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. Today we have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Andrea Niestas. She has a PhD in clinical psychology. She does coaching. She helps with mental health and suicide prevention, which is very near and dear to my heart. And she's also got a very interesting transformative story about how she got into where she's at right now. And I'm really excited to talk to her today. How are you doing today?
Oh, good. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you as well.
Awesome. So why don't you go ahead and get us started and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So, I have, as you mentioned, my degree is in clinical psychology, and I soon after graduated, I did a lot of different kind of internships as we normally do, outpatient therapy. I worked in a residential facility,
Hmm.
but once I got my PhD, I ended up staying working at a behavioral hospital that I was at. So I ended up working at a behavioral health or psychiatric hospital, whatever you want to call it. I ended up working there for almost 20 years. So it was a very it was a very good learning experience, but it also helped me. I need to pause for a second. I forgot to ask you, do you edit?
I can. I normally don't, but I'll edit that out.
Okay, all right, sorry. So I'll just know
That's
for the
okay.
future.
No worries.
So by working there, I was really able to help individuals who were at the worst times in their life. Because in order to be admitted to a behavioral health hospital, you really have to be at a severe situation. So we really saw people who were at their worst, people who were suicidal, people who were in the middle of a psychotic or manic episode. So it really was fulfilling to be able to work in that environment and to be able to help those individuals. So most of the time that I was there, I was working in the intake department, which was the admissions. So I eventually became director of that department. And so I had clinicians and nurses working with me, and they would do assessments to help determine if these individuals needed to be admitted into the hospital or not, depending on what their symptoms in the situation was. So I ended up being there for about 20 years and, you know, learned learned a lot and was able to work with a lot of different people.
That's got to be really tough, though. I mean, being in a psychiatric hospital and seeing the people who are essentially suffering and I mean, knowing what I know now and having my own opinions about mental illness and the spiritual community and things, how did that affect you being there for so long?
It was very heavy. I mean, it was very heavy for the staff. It was very draining emotionally. It was also very draining physically just because it was a very fast-paced environment. As you
Hmm.
can imagine, everybody that was coming in some sort of crisis. So we really had to get people admitted quickly. Sometimes it was really, a crisis situation. So it was a very fast-paced job. And there was a lot going on at once sometimes. So it was very difficult for the staff emotionally to be able to do all of that, take all of that in, and to be able to help, because you have to be able to have enough, inner resources to be able to deal with all of that on your own so that you don't end up with all of that emotional baggage, if you will, after
Right.
you're done with the patient. You need to move on to someone else because now you have someone else to give your attention and your time to.
Right.
So it was being with the person and really being with them while you were there, but having to move on to the next person so that you could give them the same time and attention. So it could be very draining for people.
And what did you do to kind of release that energy before you moved on to the next patient?
So, everyone everyone was definitely encouraged to take their breaks, to take their time in between. Everyone had their own individual way of dealing with things. I did a lot of breathing exercises. I
Hmm.
did a lot of hiding, if you will. I would take 5 or 10 minutes, take my 5 or 10 minute break, and I would literally go hide where nobody could find me. And it wasn't much time, but it really was just that getting away, just
Hmm.
getting yourself out of the situation, telling people when you go on break, you're going out of the office. You can't hang out at your desk while you're on break. You need to get out of the situation. You need to get out of the environment just so that you have that division of like work time versus like this is my own time.
Right.
So making sure that people did that they try to, separate, work from their break time. And, it wasn't just the patients, it was really their families and their loved ones as well, because people were coming in extremely concerned about their loved one. And especially individuals who had never been hospitalized, were having kind of a first episode of their entire life. Their families were really scared and
Right.
they didn't know what to do and they were really panicked. And so having the information to be able to educate them on what they could expect, but then also being able, again, to like manage their emotions
Mm.
and be able to help the family as much as you could help the patient was really the goal.
Yeah. Okay, sorry I interrupted you. Please continue. Please continue your story.
Oh, no, no, that there was no interruption. So I think, it was really just making sure that everybody knew that they had permission to take care of themselves, to have their downtime and whatever it was that worked for them to make sure that they got that done.
Yeah. I mean, and that's so important, and that's good because I know some places don't do that. So you got to take care of your staff too, especially when you're dealing with such heavy, emotions and energy and stuff with people who
Hmm.
are in crisis, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was very difficult. And, sometimes because of a situation being more urgent or imminent, sometimes we didn't get those breaks. Sometimes we had to just jump in and move on to the next person.
Mhm.
And so then we would really, the other key was just making sure that we worked as a team. If there was something that you could do to help someone while they had to go jump in, with the next person immediately, maybe there's paperwork or something that you could do that you could help them with so they wouldn't have to deal with that afterwards. So anything that we could do to help each other and work as a team is really what I encouraged in the department because it was really needed.
Yeah. So you said you were there for 20 years. What did you do after that?
So after that, I really only left that job because I had ended up moving to a different city. So after that, I started teaching at a local college. So I started teaching psychology and I taught different classes, but I mostly did general psychology and statistics for the behavioral sciences.
Those were
So I
fun
did that
classes.
for, well, I don't think too many people thought statistics was fun, but
No, it wasn't. I was being facetious. I don't like math. I like science. But I remember taking those classes and thinking like, I mean, they weren't as bad as like regular math. I will give it that. And my teachers were great because they were like, okay, here are the different, statistical formulas. You just have to pick the right one to use. Okay, cool. That was helpful. I didn't have to just figure it out completely. But I do remember those classes. I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I only have to take two.
but science is based in statistics. I mean,
I
that's how
know.
research is done, and that's how studies are information is collected, data is reviewed. So
And this is
it
why
does
I
have,
don't personally work in a lab. I just rely on everyone else who can do it a little better than me.
yes, yeah. I always used to have the joke at work, hashtag know my limitations.
Yes,
I know what my
exactly.
limitations are, what I can do, and what I shouldn't be doing.
Correct.
So I did that for about a year and a half. And right about that time, I ended up at the college, started working part time instead of full time. So then that's when I had the idea of doing the life coaching because I had wanted to do it for a while and I had been thinking about doing it for a while. So I said, well, now that I'm only doing the teaching part time, then maybe this is a good time to get this rolling and see how it works out for me. So I started doing it about a year and a half into the teaching when I had gone to part time.
Gotcha. And what do you specialize in with your life coaching?
So the life coaching really is, well, it's really kind of interesting because it was the start of my life coaching business before I got sick, and then where it is now after I got sick and survived and recovered. So it really is sort of like, part one and part two.
Hmm.
So back then, when I first started, I was really looking at just sort of general wellness, and as I thought about it more, I realized that what I was looking at for life coaching was really like sort of the opposite of what I had been doing, where people were going in for treatment in a crisis because they needed some kind of help to get better. They were already experiencing symptoms, they already had possibly a diagnosis. And so they really needed that treatment to be able to help them get better and stabilize. Whereas when I started thinking about starting life coaching, I was really looking at it from preventative perspective. So
Right.
now I was really interested in helping people gain skills and learn new things so that they could learn how to handle life stresses and not get to that point where they were in a crisis.
Right. Which is important.
So
Hmm.
yeah, so I was really looking at helping people learn ways to deal with stress and things that were going on in their life. And I felt that that really was sort of the next step in what I was doing as a manager, anyways, because I had been doing some training at the hospital. That's where I started doing my suicide prevention training. So I did that for all the hospital employees. But with my own staff, my own department, I had been doing, just basic training of this is how you do your job. But because I did work with a lot of clinicians who were just sort of newly graduated and this was maybe their first like professional adult job, I would talk to them and tell them I'm not just teaching you how to be an intake counselor and how to work at a hospital. I was really trying to help them kind of learn how to be a professional, how to develop those professional skills like the critical thinking and the problem solving and the, empathy for the clients and the family. So it really sort of went beyond the actual job and starting to starting their professional journey.
Hmm.
And so I really sort of took that and started wanting to do that, not just in that professional arena, but really in like the life scope, someone's life. You're really kind of going out there in life, realizing that there's things that could help you that you just maybe just don't know how to do.
Right.
You want to be able to handle stress better, or not get as angry, or, be able to enjoy your job better, but you just don't know how to do it. And
Hmm.
so, really, that's kind of where I saw a place that I could help people. And I really enjoyed, I think probably because I had a team that I worked with in my department, because I had a team, I was really enjoying like workshops where I could have a group of people.
Hmm.
And it really kind of seemed like a good fit. Like I could help even more people in this group setting because not only number one, it's just more numbers of people that I can help, but also they can help each other, during group discussions and during give me an example. They can learn from each other as well and not just from me.
Hmm.
So that's why I really enjoyed kind of that group setting and doing something more in a workshop form.
Yeah, I do team building workshops and I love them. They're so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, they really do just feed off of each other,
Mhm.
and sometimes as a facilitator, you kind of just step out of the conversation,
Yeah.
and let them learn and hear from each other.
Yeah. It's great to witness. And they really learn a lot about each other and themselves too. And I think that's really empowering for people, especially when they have to work together, every day and building
Yes.
that relationship and that trust, I think is really
Hmm.
important.
Yes. Yes. And then I have done workshops for workplaces, and it really is, you can just feel that energy where people are
Mhm.
kind of feeling each other and they're sort of on the same page, and you know that they leave maybe just a little bit more connected and
Mhm.
at least whatever it was that you were talking about. And that's always just like the next step in them becoming a more, cohesive, productive team.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk about your transformation. Let's talk about, you said, there was a part one and a part two to your life coaching bu business, but in between that, you were in a coma, you got sick. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, so I was probably about 3 months into, you know, trying to build a business, create my workshops and my programs, kind of starting to meet people. And then I started getting sick in summer of 2024. And it's, started off slowly, but I started getting worse. I went to go see my primary doctor, and he was really wanting, I needed to go see a specialist. And I was actually in the process of changing my specialist doctor, my GI doctor. And so I went to go see my doctor once. I went to go see my doctor twice. I wasn't getting better, so he actually sent me to the ER. The ER didn't, they just gave me medication, sent me home. I eventually tried to go back to my primary doctor because at this point I'm getting worse. So I had gotten so bad to the point where I couldn't even, I was so weak. My biggest issues were that I was so weak, I couldn't even get up off the couch on my
Oh,
own. My husband had to help lift me to get up off the couch. By the time I walked 10 feet, I was out of breath. So I
oh,
was having trouble breathing. I was sleeping all day because I was just so weak. I just had these terrible body aches. And I would just sit there. I would sit there groaning during the times that I was awake, which was not very much during the day. I really couldn't eat because I was just feeling so sick. So I tried to go back to my doctor again to say, look, I'm still not feeling better. And they said, well, there's nothing else we can do. You have to wait for your specialist appointment. And if anyone has seen a specialist, you know how long that takes to get in.
yeah.
So I was waiting for like 3 months, 3.5 months from the time I made the appointment. So by this point, it's like mid August, I want to say, and my appointment wasn't until mid September. So my primary doctor wouldn't help me. The ER really didn't do anything. I eventually went to urgent care a few weeks later, and they said, oh, you have a sinus infection. So I was on my second or third round of antibiotics by that point.
Wow.
So every time I took the antibiotics, it helped a little bit, and I was hopeful that I was going to get better, but I didn't. So eventually, because I was only working at the college part time, I got another part time job out of town, and I had to go about 4.5 hours away to work 1 day a week.
While you were
So,
sick?
well, I accepted the job before I was sick,
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
but yes, while I was sick. So the
Wow.
first week that I had to go, I I was to the point of using a cane at that point. I don't even know. So I went to class. I walked with a cane. At one point, we took a class break. It took me 15 minutes to walk down the hallway to use the restroom and come back. That's how slow I was moving. The following week, which would have been my second week there, my husband said, you should not be going. And he had drove me. Granted, by this time I hadn't even been driving for like a month and a half already. So he said, you shouldn't go. You're too sick. And I said, I'm known to be very stubborn. I said, no, 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 I have to go. I signed a contract. It's my professional responsibility. I have to go. I have to go. Meanwhile, I was so weak to the point I couldn't even pack my own bag. I was sitting there telling him, okay, grab that dress, grab those shoes, put it in that bag. I couldn't even walk to the car on my own. He was helping me walk to the car. He said, I don't know how you think you're going to work. And I said, let's just go. That night, which would have been the next day would have been my second day at this job. We got to the hotel trying to check in, and I finally collapsed. So they had to call 911. I went to the emergency room, and finally, it was where I was meant to collapse because I ended up 4.5 hours away from home, unfortunately. But fortunately, I was finally in a hospital where people were actually helping me.
Yeah.
So it still took them about a week and a half to figure out what was wrong with me. So that first week and a half was really a lot of medication. I was kind of in and out. And then eventually I had to have emergency surgery because they figured what was wrong with me. And they had to go in there. And after my emergency surgery is when I ended up in a coma for about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So that was like part two and part one and part two of being admitted. That first week of just being, I was already so, by being there even just a week, I was bedbound and I couldn't even like move my legs by that point. Uh, and I was in and out. And there was at one point, I had this weird experience one point actually where I really thought I was not going to wake up anymore. I thought that I was going to die that night. I was very anxious being away from home, and I was so confused. I was so drugged up on medications that I was starting to have a panic attack because I said, I just want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. And they had to give me Ativan because I was so upset.
Mm-hmm.
And as the Ativan was taking its effect, I felt it could have just been the drifting off of the medication. But I really felt like I was like, this is it, you know? It probably, like I said, was just me going into this slumber. But in the moment, I really thought that I was going to go to sleep and not wake up.
Right.
And it was just really confusing for me because I was so high on medication, other medications, steroids, and that I was hallucinating at the time as well, and I didn't know it. So I really didn't even understand what was real and what was not real. At one point, I thought the hospital staff was trying to kill me.
Oh my goodness.
Um, yeah, so it was delirium, delusions, dreams. I don't know what it was, but I was just so really confused and didn't really understand. And then that day that I got the Ativan, I really just was like drifting away and thought like, oh, like this is it. This this is what happens when people die. And I really didn't think I was going to wake up.
Oh.
And then and then I did. And then a few days later I had emergency surgery, and then that's when I ended up in a 2-week coma.
Do you remember anything from your coma?
Not Not really. Like during those 2 weeks, I pretty much was out the whole time, but I was just having really weird dreams and just really kind of weird stuff was happening. And I just remember at one point and it's hard to even say if it was recurrent. Like I felt like I had some recurrent dreams, but without the time space continuum, I really don't even know honestly what was happening. But
Right.
I had this dream at one point where I was like driving over a bridge and I could hear a jukebox. I knew it was a jukebox. I don't know how. It was a jukebox playing this music overhead. And as I was driving across the bridge in a convertible car, which I've never had, there was a song that kept playing. And then I'd turn around and go back over the bridge and just back and forth, back and forth. And I would hear the same song and I could never hear the words. I never knew exactly what it said. I couldn't figure it out. I just knew it was Rod Stewart.
Hmm.
I knew it was Rod Stewart. And so, anyways, I kept hearing this. And so when I woke up from all of that craziness, I was like, what song is that? Why did I keep hearing this song and I couldn't figure it out? So, anyways, sort of down the line to jump a little bit, probably about a year. It was almost exactly a year from when I even got hospitalized. I was at an event and I heard that song.
Oh,
And I
okay.
Googled the song on my phone, and I finally figured out what the song was. And I was finally able to figure it out. And it was just, pulling up the words and pulling up the lyrics and trying to like figure out why I was hearing that. And it just gets you really thinking, like when you're talking about that spiritual aspect, like what did it mean? Like, was I getting a message at that time? And just there was just so much that I was going through and seeing and experiencing that I really was so confused and I just couldn't even understand.
What song was it, if I may ask?
So It is. I actually wrote a blog on it that I put on my website. It's Rod Stewart, Young Turks,
Okay.
which I don't even know. And this is the other weird thing, though, is when I heard that song at that event and I figured out what it was, 2 days later, I heard the song again in a grocery store.
Oh,
The
interesting.
very next day, my brother heard it at a doctor's office that he was at.
Wow.
2 weeks later, I heard the song again 2 days in a row while I was out, like random places, not Spotify, not on my playlist,
Right.
just in random places. The song came on again, another 2 days in a row. Okay, so I I heard the song several times, but when I looked up the lyrics, it was just very strange because the lyrics that I kept hearing over and over, I would hear the song, but I couldn't hear the lyrics. So when I finally identified the song and looked up the lyrics and see what they were "Young hearts be free tonight, time is on your side." And
Interesting.
so, yeah, I just kept thinking, like, was that a message that I was receiving when I was in this coma? Because I think that's about the time that I was having that particular dream.
Hmm.
Time is on your side. So it just made me think, was I receiving a message saying that I was going to be okay? Because at that point, I did almost die 3 times. Like, we really didn't know if I was going to live or not.
Right.
But just the fact that I didn't hear that song for a whole year from the point that I got hospitalized. But then when I heard it about 6 times in a month.
Yeah.
Because after that first hearing of it, I heard it again the next week, 2 days in a row. And then my same brother heard it again as well on the
Right.
same day that I did.
Interesting. Well, clearly time was on your side because you're still here.
Yes, yes, I know.
So how did that experience, getting sick and almost dying, how did that change your life?
So when I first woke up from the coma, I was still very groggy, and it was probably a week of just kind of really trying to figure out what was going on, not understanding the tubes. And I was on a ventilator, and it really was the ventilator that had me the most worried,
Right.
because I knew if I couldn't get off the ventilator to breathe on my own, then I knew that I wasn't going to survive.
Right.
So the ventilator was really what scared me the most. So it was about a week of like really kind of waking up before I could really be part of the world, even though I was awake. So after about a week, that's when I started realizing like how bad off I was. And that's when I started really to get dejected and depressed.
Hmm.
And I would think, why did I survive for this? Why did I survive to be on a ventilator with the trach and tubes and feeding tube, and I can't walk, I can't talk. Like, why am I even here? And so I was probably in that state for about a week until it just I just I knew that if I didn't get better emotionally, then I wasn't going to get better physically,
Hmm.
or at least not as quickly.
Right.
And because I was having a hard time getting off the ventilator, every time they tried to titrate me off the amount of air that I was getting from the ventilator, I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I would start panicking because I was so scared of not getting off of it that then the
Can't work.
self-fulfilling
Right.
prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I would have panic attacks. And so I was so afraid not to get off of it. And I said, you know what? I can't get better physically if I don't start changing my thinking process. So I pretty much told myself that it was time to stop feeling sorry for myself, that I did it and I needed it, but it's over. And I just made a decision that I am going to, instead of saying, why am I still here? Now I have another I would get better and then I would get another infection. They'd put me back on the medication. And I would think like, why am I not getting better? Why am I still stuck in the hospital? And I decided to change that thinking to I am grateful to be in the hospital because number one, it means that I'm alive. And number two, it means that somebody's actually helping me. And they weren't helping me before.
Right.
Nobody, the doctors weren't helping me where I lived. And had to go 4.5 hours away before I could find a team of doctors who would actually help me.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up being in the hospital for 3.5 months. And just in ICU, I was in ICU for a month and a half. So I just decided that I had to stop thinking that way and I had to change my mindset and start feeling more grateful for what I actually had and that I had survived. And I used that mentality to help me recover physically faster.
It's amazing the power of, perspective shifts and gratitude. It really does make a difference. And there's science behind it. There's great
Mhm.
people at
There is.
statistics that I'm not good at. But
Someone did the statistics for you.
yes, exactly. Again, know your limitations. So, but there is research to show like creating these new neural pathways and finding ways to really change the way you look at stuff. It does affect your mind, your emotions, and your physical body.
It does. And I mean, and it's not like it was like, peachy after that. Like, no, eventually I ended up on Zoloft and eventually they had to double my Zoloft because I was still in the hospital a month later, you know? And so it was just so frustrating. And I really felt like I was jumping out of my skin because I just wanted to leave so bad.
Right.
But at least it was my start because I wouldn't have been able to progress at all if I just decided to be stuck in that hole
Right.
of like drudgery and darkness and like, why am I even here? As
Mhm.
opposed to, I am here definitely for a reason. Like, I feel like I was only saved by the grace of God because there's no, like, they didn't think I was going to survive.
Right.
And I would tell myself I'm here obviously for some kind of purpose, which it's too early to figure out what that is. I just need to get home
Hmm.
and keep surviving. But there's a reason why I'm here, and eventually I'll learn that. But I'm never going to get to that place if I don't even get out of the hospital.
Right. So how did that change what you do now? You said that affected how you did your life coaching and stuff. So how did that whole experience not only change how you live your life, but how you decided to help other people?
So it just really got me thinking more about being in a spot like when I worked at the hospital, as much as I did enjoy helping the people that I worked with, like we talked about, like it was just so it was emotionally heavy and it was hard, and there was a lot of burnout, definitely.
Hmm.
And so knowing that I was at that point where it was like, where they say you live for the weekends, you just drag yourself through Monday through Friday. You just get up, your same routine, and you're just waiting until Friday afternoon when you're all done with that, and you feel like you get 2 days to yourself. And so knowing that experience, I really felt like the next step for me was to help people get to a point where they didn't feel like that. They didn't feel like they were drudging through life and just surviving. And instead, they felt like they were actually fulfilled and that they were thriving and that they were feeling meaning and value in their life as opposed to just getting through until Friday evening.
Right.
And so that's really where I changed kind of the focus of my coaching has been is really trying to help people know that there is another way to look at it. And I would hope they wouldn't have to go through anything as serious as I have to be able to learn that, to be able to
Right,
appreciate what you have,
right.
to be able to say, like, I have to tell myself every day, remember what could have been,
Yeah.
and that I never know when that day is finally going to come, you know?
Hmm.
Nobody does. And so there's only one life to live here on earth. And if you just get through by the, what is it, the skin of your teeth for 5 days just to get through 2 days. I mean, look at how much you're wasting.
Right.
Look at how much time you're just,
Going
you're
through the
just letting,
motions, right?
yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. Just going through the motions as
Hmm.
opposed to looking at what you can be grateful for and what you can appreciate in every single day, no matter what.
Right. Awesome. So if someone wanted to take advantage of your life coaching services or, any other projects that you're working on, how would they find you?
So my website is lifecoachingbyandrea.com, and I am on social media. My handle on all my accounts is the same, Life Coaching by Andrea. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Awesome. Have you written a book yet? You should.
I have thought about it, and I actually did start writing some notes last year, and I haven't got back to it this year, but it's actually definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, you should. You have an amazing story. I just finished my first book and it was very empowering, and the things that, like, people who have been through these unique experiences, especially the near-death experiences, like, this is why I asked if you remember anything from your coma, because there's so many things. And even the Rod Stewart story is amazing because there's so much that we have that we've been through that we can share with the
Hmm.
world. And I don't know, I think it would be a good idea, but that's just my opinion. It's a great, it took a lot of work and I'm glad it's finally done and ready to be published, but you should. I would read it.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I plan to, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes, I plan to.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And before we wrap up, I have one question for you that I ask most of my guests. What's, for anyone who's listening, the whole world is your oyster. What's one piece of advice that you would give to everyone right now?
The one piece of advice is just adding on to what I said earlier is to you have to remember every single day. It really has to be every day. You have to remind yourself how precious every single day is because you let one day go, you let another day go, and it's going to be so easy to start taking everything for granted again. So
Mhm.
it has to be a conscious effort. And I do that every day now consciously. I have to make a conscious effort to say, this is what I'm grateful for. I'm actually still alive. And people say it could be worse, but it could be better. Well, it could always be better. But, the point is to actually appreciate what you have, find the goodness, and that's where you start finding that life fulfillment.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here today. It was awesome to speak with you, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you're ready to stop surviving the ascension and start actually moving through it with a map, the Self Spirit method was built for exactly where you are. And if you want a little taste of what that might look like, my book, Becoming Divine, is now available. It's the foundation, the framework, and the permission slip all in one place. Find the program and the link to purchase the book at divineascensionco.com. You were never meant to figure this out alone. I'm here. Let's do this together.